Welcome to the MBD Podcast, the show where we dig into what's actually working or not when it comes to scaling businesses with people who've been there. Today's guest has been there, he sold a startup, and I'll let him introduce himself and his awesome past.
Awesome. Great, Jason. Thank you. Let's not confuse the Jasons here, but actually, I'd like to have a little bit of what Jason Wright has. So, it, I currently am the CEO and founder of AI DevLab. We do AI development. Very often, we come in as a fractional chief AI officer because a lot of people have the question, what the heck do I do with AI? What do I do about it? How do I handle it? What do I do? So that's kind of the space I play in. But I've worn a few hats in the past, from corporate America when I was senior vice president for Sony Pictures, doing digital content distribution around the globe, to a startup myself, and in previous days where I started it in what we called NLP and machine learning. Now everyone would call it AI, but I've kind of seen a lot of different aspects in my life, and funny thing is, I still have gaps. There's still things I wish I knew.
Yeah, I know, right? And so, with that past experience, what are you seeing right now, or within the current business environment, that they're struggling with and trying to scale those businesses?
Yeah, I think there's a couple areas that continue to be a challenge. Sales and marketing, scaling that. Here's what I see with a lot of founders. They are dynamic. They can sell their vision. It's their baby. But when they try to scale that, I had this same problem myself. When they try to scale that, it doesn't cross over. It becomes a whole different discipline as you move into a scalable sales and marketing. I could get as technical when I go into investments and I think about an investment. I talk to companies. What is your cost? Your customer acquisition cost. Knowing what that is today versus what it will be tomorrow, from an early stage startup to a business that's trying to scale, it changes. You think it's going to get better because you get more volume and you're going to get more efficient, but it actually gets harder because you start with your easiest target market, and then you expand out, and it gets harder and harder, and your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, goes up. So I see sales and marketing continually across companies that are looking to scale as a challenge. I also see, again, I spend most of my time in the AI world, and I see a lot of people starting with some AI, and then they miss the point of, how do I get this out to my organization? How do I make it more usable, scale it across the organization? And that's where the failing happens. Because I think a lot of people think about it as a technology rather than it's a tool, it's a use case. How do I think about it more of a product market fit? How does it fit your own customers, your own users inside the company? So, I mean, those are the areas where I work in. I'm sure there's bigger problems in manufacturing, scaling, and other operational things. But those are kind of the low hanging fruit that I see as needs. And
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, because you're saying on the marketing side, when it goes to scaling, and I see this a lot too, is that they'll dominate their friends and family or maybe their local market, but now they need to create and push that vision out to something broader where they don't have such a stronghold. Do you have any kind of ideas or directions or tips on being able to do that effectively?
yeah, so okay, this is not a great tip.
Yeah.
Um, Hire somebody who knows how to do it. I found the best success when I had somebody that had that level. You can go so far with your own. You should learn it. I'll come back later and tell you what I should have spent more time learning, and it is in the sales and marketing space, because it doesn't matter how cool your product is, doesn't matter how great you do, if you can't get that message out in a cold environment, then you're going to be limited in scaling. And so I could tell that I didn't do that well. Look, I spend my time in AI and technology, so I know where somebody else has strengths and I leverage those.
hmm Now, that's something common I hear, is that, and I've seen this one thing, it started in business school where they said, the greatest widget maker does not know how to usually sell his widgets. And because if people don't hear about his widgets, then who's going to buy them? the other thing too is like, especially in the AI space or technology space, I see a lot of these websites and they're written by engineers who create these and design these amazing products, but you can't understand what they're talking about, at a quick glimpse snapshot. And then they're using that messaging to go out into the market, whether it's the pitch for VC or to try and get customers. And it's like, you guys, you got to dumb it down. You got to get it to that fifth grade level. So yeah, the messaging and also getting someone who knows what they're doing. Cause I see startups, a lot of the owners will try and hold on to money for product development, not realizing that if they don't have sales, they're not going to be able to develop any product. So hiring the people to help get that out, I think actually a great tip because, why handcuff yourself?
Right.
There's
Why
an end goal.
you're going to pay the price one way or another. But there definitely is a learning curve, and again, I'd say that is the missing piece. When I look at where the world is going now with the fast pace of technology, um, it's very hard to differentiate on technology anymore because it can be copied so fast. You can prototype a copy of that, unless you have something clearly proprietary, right? It's patented or it's some type of data that nobody else has. And so what that means is you can build, and most products are going digital, right? So
Mm-hmm.
unless you're manufacturing or doing something like that, that's a space I don't know as much about. But in the digital space, in the technology space, you're going to build something that has, this is cool tech. It does something great. But that is less of a differentiator than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So now you have to think about, who is my target customer? Do I have a good fit with them? How can I communicate it? And what is my channel to market? How do I get to market? That might be through a partner, might be through direct marketing, but that can differentiate you.
Mm-hmm.
Those three combinations, right, in terms of how well you actually meet the customer's needs, how closely it's aligned. And when I say meet their needs, is they don't have to click on something else to get to it. It comes in. It comes when they want it. It comes when they need it. There's all kinds of ways to think about that, but it's not just, hey, I've got this new website and you can do this on my website and it connects into AI. Doesn't matter, even if it's AI. It's nothing without your marketing channel or how you're going to get to market, how you're going to sell it. It might be direct, it might be indirect with partners. I've done a lot with partnerships, and that's where I find, me personally, find a lot of success is when I work with a partner that might have a complementary offering. Then I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
do the direct sales. They already have a customer base. So those are things that some of the things that I've leaned on.
No, great. Yeah, piggybacking is a great way to build it out with someone who's already got established base, especially if they have a large established base. Like, everybody probably want to piggyback off like Salesforce or something in certain technology spaces. And so now you've identified you're trying to grow the business, you're coming up and you need part of scalability is efficiency. Where are you seeing a lot of AI solutions fit, or is there anything kind of standard that most people should be doing right now, or most businesses should be looking into to try and implement for efficiency, or is it kind of unique for every business across the board?
So what when I'm going to put on my chief AI officer hat, right?
Yeah.
And the way I would approach that question, right?
Okay.
And I will typically go in and say, first of all, you know, I say, let's put AI aside. AI is just another tool, like any kind of automation, technology, or software, or whatever, right? And let's talk about, where do you have gaps? Where do you have pain points? What are you having problems scaling? What do you need? And every business I find is different, even if it is in the sales and marketing, even if it is in the operations, and if it's a service business, client management, client support, they have a unique way of doing things. And so I typically try to ignore or put aside the technology and just talk about the business problem or the business opportunity that they're missing out on, or what's keeping them up at night. Because because if I come in from the top and horizontal and say, oh, let's solve this, you're this kind of business, you have this problem, we kind of don't take the time to say, what's your number one? Like, what's the thing that's really keeping you up at night? What's the thing that's going to have the biggest impact? It might be small, actually. Um, I'll give you an example. Uh, we're working with a company, and they came in with this, like, hey, we want some technology to do this. And there was nothing really off the shelf to do that. And they actually didn't have budget to invest in AI. And we got down to this one little thing that they needed to translate, they needed to change the text of a TV program. So they were doing, descriptions on TV programs. They needed
Like
to
closed
change the
captions.
text of that, and then they needed to put it into 10 different languages, and they were using people all over the world to do that because of the nuances. Now they could go into a chat GPT and say, oh, this does kind of pretty good, it could possibly do it, but they still had some problems. And they said, but we don't have any budget to do an AI and invest in that. And well, how much so we started breaking down, how much are you spending on this right now? It costs us about $1 every time we go offshore, get somebody to translate this into Turkish or translate it into French or Spanish or whatever it was. And and so we took that and said, well, so they just couldn't scale anymore. They just couldn't scale that human side of the business. And so we were able to work that down to say, look, if we could solve this for you at 15 cents every time you do one of these, would you be willing to do that? And so we took that one problem and got it to their target price point, right, at 15 cents, and said, all right, we're going to solve this at 15 cents. So that was my job. I put our team on and
Nice.
said, find a way to do this across 10 different languages and do it in an automated fashion so that we can get it into that price point. So that was, that's a good example of where they had a pain point, they could not scale. I would have never gone into their business knowing that that was like, hey, let's scale this, right? If I didn't just ask the questions about what's bothering you right now.
Yeah, and you're pointing onto the sales side of discovery, right? Like having the discovery, asking the right questions, and digging into what solutions that they really need, even though it's keeping them up at night. They may not thinking from an AI, not even be aware there's an AI solution for that. Awesome. And so you've got this. You go in, you develop business. Now, how are you developing and doing outreach on your side for your current business? Are you using a lot of partnerships right now? Are you doing any type of
Yeah.
outreach yourself?
So as I mentioned, I do things my background has been in channel development, like historically. When I worked for Sony Pictures, we had a lot of content. We were doing digital distribution, and I would go into a market and I'd find a key partner. Those might have been, obviously they're different, websites, different mobile operators, anyone with technology that wanted to showcase the capabilities of their technology. And I could go into each of those markets and find a partner, and then they would do the distribution for me. So I lean on that. And a lot of people don't think that way first. They think direct sales. It's the most straightforward way to approach things. But what I found with a lot of, for example, I work in the tech space, and there are a lot of people that are in that space. They might be doing IT services, or they might be doing cybersecurity. So they have a specialty. And while they have some knowledge of AI, I mean, everyone can get pretty, knowledgeable, or they can talk about it pretty quickly by looking at a few things, right? But I've been able to go in with them and essentially become their fractional chief AI officer for them. But then they leverage me and my team's background to be able to go and win AI deals. So then they're actually doing the software development. Then I'm adding in the AI expertise, or sometimes it's complicated machine learning, and getting in deeper on that way. So I found for me, that's the best way for me to scale, is because they have a customer base, they have an expertise. When it's complementary, it's very useful for them and it's good for me.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing too, like with what we're tapping into as far as at least on the sales side of them going in and being like, hey, I can help you develop a more efficient sales team, help you regulate them and develop reporting in ways that you didn't know were going to be easy to implement and review and to an individual level in mass. Yeah, the partnership perspective is great. So you've got that. And what are some of the challenges you have with these partnerships? What are some of the things that you've got to work through in order to make them stay successful or cut them off?
Yeah. So, setting expectations up front is good, but not easy because typically getting started is kind of the first hurdle you have to get over. So you got to make it easy for that first working relationship and start working with them. And then what I find is um, make it easy for them to talk about you or the solution. And that means, again, going back to kind of the marketing side and the sales side of it, is feeding your channel with all of your information, right? How do I talk about this? How do I feed this in? How do I connect these things? So if you feed them, and then ideally you have a co-marketing plan with them. So there's an expectation. All right, you've got this many customers. What's your outreach? Let's add this to your outreach. And what I found is if you craft the message, a lot of times when you're doing cold outreach or you're reaching out to past clients you've worked with in the past, if you're going to reach out to them, you kind of have to have, it helps to have something new to talk about, you know? And sometimes they don't have anything new. In the services business, a lot of times, hey, we still do cybersecurity and we still do information services, IT. And so to come in and say, hey, meet Jason Wells or meet somebody else on my team. He's a fractional chief AI officer. Let's set up a call and talk about it. That's something new, something different. And so I feed them with, here's different content they have. Everybody's looking for content. Everybody's looking for things to talk about. So I make it easy for them to talk about AI DevLab. But actually, they don't even talk about AI DevLab because I let them white label it and we're just in the background. So there's a lot of different ways how I don't even need to be my brand. I'm really just supporting them.
I see what you're doing. You're supporting their service that's done through you, essentially, that they get value from and they're able to pass that on. Uh, what, so even go back a little bit, how do you identify these partnerships and reach out to them?
So I will, I use LinkedIn a lot. I use some
Yeah.
automation there because that group, that channel is on LinkedIn. There are other people that are not on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is getting very noisy. It's hard to break through. So, I spend most of my life in the B2B space. And so, for the most part, my target partnerships are there. And I don't start, for me, I use some automation, which is just connecting. I put enough social proof on my LinkedIn profile. I build that up so that people, when they check, is like, oh, okay, this is a credible person. I don't, in my case, while I use automation there, I don't find nearly a quarter, maybe quarter to a half of the benefit when somebody else uses their profile. If you're coming in as a BDR reaching out to a CEO, it's very tough to make that contact.
Mm-hmm.
So I leverage my profile a lot because I bring a lot of credibility, so it's easier.
Got it. Yeah. So, okay. So you're doing auto connection requests. Then you've optimized your profile so that way it has a social proof that when people view it, they know that you're credible. And then how do you initiate the contact or introduction?
So again, I do not go in with a sales pitch. I go in with would love to talk about what you guys are doing in AI. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to collaborate. That's it. Nothing deeper than that. That can be automated, but I still don't automate that. well, I'll automate the first version, but as soon as I get a response, then I go
Yeah.
live. I
Awesome.
actually do have another. Hopefully, LinkedIn's not watching. I do have another human monitor my LinkedIn profile to help me do that, um, because I can't be in there all the time. But then
Yeah.
once it goes live, then I jump in, and it's just then I know I've moved it down the funnel enough where it makes sense for me
To
to
engage and it's
do
not a waste of time. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's a great tip for people to realize that LinkedIn's still a great platform because I use it in a similar way that you are. And we get a lot out of it, right? It's like constructing that initial message after the connection that gets the interest and peaks it to where they actually contact. Because there's so much noise. Like I've been in so much stuff every day, and it's like, how do we break through this? How do we be unique? How do we get something on the radar? Um,
And the thing is, the only real, I mean, I get so much noise, right, hitting me up on LinkedIn. But if you're a real person with a real connection, like a meaning, and there is something of interest, and you're talking to the right person, they'll still respond. I still do. I still look at the cold outreach. I miss a lot of it, but I still look at the cold outreach, and if it's the right message, and it's usually not a sales message, and it's definitely not long, and never look at a long message because that's a
yeah,
sales pitch.
right.
Um, it's but again, there's more expert people than I in in LinkedIn marketing and marketing as it goes. But I I can book. We've done that when I go aggressive. I can book 10 to 20 meetings a week. It's a lot of discovery. It's for me. I'm not a hard seller. I don't. And if you're a BDR, that's your only job. So it's a bit you know it's a bit tricky when you scale it
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, well, LinkedIn has limits on what your outreach per week is as well too. So there's only so much you can do. Also, a tip is that I've automated voice messaging to be personalized, and that had a big impact to help people connect on LinkedIn
Yeah.
as well too. Um, so cool. If someone's listening and trying to scale right now, what's one piece of advice you wish you had earlier?
I'm going to tell you the opposite of the thing I just told you, is to hire somebody who knows how to do it. Uh, Learn how to, no matter if you're a technologist, no matter where you are, if marketing and sales is not your thing, uh, it's going to be one of the number one most important things you have in your business when you want to scale. Learn all you can. Well, you might hire somebody. If I would have said, if somebody would have said, you're always going to be a sales and marketer. You're always going to be, if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do, no matter what you do, even if you're a corporate employee in accounting, you're still selling and marketing. But how to do that systematically, learn that, do it, be a part of it. My daughter, who is a data scientist at Delta Airlines, she spent a summer doing summer sales where you go out and knock doors, and
Great. That's
she's
great.
selling solar. And she said, I didn't make much money, but it was the best. I think every person should go knock doors for a summer and try to sell door to door,
I
because
agree.
you learn a lot.
So much about yourself, about other people, overcoming objections, failure. It's a numbers game. There's so much to go. Like my daughter, she's only 7, but I'm trying to get her out selling stuff too at times. Be like, hey, go, for sports or something, just so she knows what it's like to go through that process and understand, like, oh, this isn't easy, and oh, I got to figure out what makes people want these things.
Yeah.
Um, but no, awesome. Well, where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're doing?
So I have a company agency. We do a lot of development. That's at AIDevLab.com. And of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's LinkedIn / Jason R. Wells. So you should be able to
Awesome.
find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jason.
All right.